What's up, everyone? Jason Gilbo here. With me is Chris Etherington, taking a look at DraftKings picks for the Northern Trust. First playoff event of the year. A full field once again, thankfully, after last week. So, jumping right into things, this is an interesting week. A lot of different ways to go. You and I were talking before the show and kind of just talking lineup construction and, definitely a few different methods that caught our eye.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I'm just going to pick a couple of guys that I like at the top who I think will have a good chance of winning. And then from there, maybe pick probably around 15 guys at the max and probably leave no more than $1,000 off the table starting this week and moving forward. That way, just so I can try and be more unique than the other players in the tournaments. There is going to be a lot of duplicates this week and the next three playoff events, just because it's a limited field and people just basically know who the chalk's going to be. That's one way to be unique, is to leave some money off the table.
We'll talk this top tier here. I mean, your usual suspects, and in your article, your three core plays. I mean, you started with Jordan Spieth, and obviously you gave Ricky Fowler the honorable mention. So I mean, those are the two that you were looking at out of that kind of 5 or 6 guys up top.
Yeah, I think those two guys I trust the most up here. For Spieth, he's just playing way too good, basically not to fade him. But I mean, he's first in the field for strokes gained around the green. He's first in the field for strokes gained in par 4 scoring. He's also in the top 10 for making birdies and as well as tee to green. And Fowler's almost as good. He's second in the field for making birdies. He's 10th in the field for strokes gained par 4 scoring. And he's basically around 30th for around the green and for tee to green. So, I mean, with those stats in mind and with their form coming in, I think, yeah, they're going to be popular, but I'm just going to go with the public on this one and just pick those two. And out of the 20 lineups, I may put them in like 50% in both of them. That way, if one of them ends up winning, then at least 10 of my lineups will have a good chance of doing well.
Maybe you like me and you just like me talking about Matsuyama. So I'm glad you leave him to me. He's always kind of one of my favorite guys I like to roster. He's been really strong over his last few tournaments here, and obviously first in DraftKings points. Strokes gained total over the last 12 rounds, he's first. His weakest stat has been strokes gained on putting, and that's just 31st. It's not like he's completely bombed. So he's in form. He's your most expensive guy. He's always a shot to take down any tournament. I mean, 6 top 10s this year. He's got 3 wins. 11-5, I don't even feel like actually all these guys are kind of priced down. I feel like this maybe have been a week where they could have priced him up a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they haven't have him go over the 12,000 mark. With all three of these guys being at 11,000, it's pretty easy to fit one of them and pick like 2 guys in the 9K range, and you'll have a nice so-called stars and scrubs lineup that you actually like for the week. It just depends on, for those people that like to look at, I guess, the tournament history. I mean, for Matsuyama, he missed a cut last year at the Northern. It was a different tournament name this year. It is the Northern Trust, but he missed a cut last year. He also did okay in 2015, and he finished okay, like top 30 in 2014. So he's hit or miss for the first playoff event, but I think it's just going to be a matter of if people are going to pay up for Matsuyama and go stars and scrubs format, or just skip him and maybe go more balanced approach this week?
Yeah, and you look at some of these other names here. I mean, Dustin Johnson, Henrik Stenson obviously coming off a huge week. You look at some of these guys. I mean, Jason Day. You want to talk about kind of tournament performance. I mean, he's been a guy who does turn up in the playoffs. Pretty good history over his last three. Looking at ownership, I mean, we were talking before. We definitely think that Rory's going to be the lowest owned out of that group, just because of, one, you were mentioning the injuries and him putting it out there, and the fact that, he really hasn't been all that consistent, and he struggled on the greens. His approach has been awful, but everything else has been strong. It's just really those two stats.
Yeah, I think those stats are just related to, I guess, a little rust. He just hasn't been playing that much all year due to the injury that he had at the beginning of this year. With Rory, I think at 10-9 is just too risky for me to plug him in. Normally, I like him if he's healthy because he does like to score. He's a really good player for DraftKings scoring. So, but with his injury concerns, the fact that he was 50-50 on even participating in the playoffs is concerning. I'm just a little surprised that he's actually playing this week. I'm just going to have to fade him. I just don't trust him well enough to actually make the cut this week and actually contend for a chance to win. And I think with Jason Day, with his recent performance, being sixth in the field for making birdies in the last 12 rounds, for being at 9,700, I think that's a nice little sweet spot where he's basically priced in between Stenson and Thomas and Koepka. I think it's going to be between Day and McIlroy for being low zone at the top.
Yeah, and personally, I mean, if I'm picking between the two, I mean, I rather take Day. This is actually, he's usually a guy who's over 10K, kind of in that 10.5 range, and like you said, it's a good sweet spot here in this range, because obviously Stenson coming off the big week, there's going to be that recency bias. Brooks Koepka has turned it up. I mean, he's had a couple of high finishes. Obviously, has done well in the opens, and 9,100. I mean, for a guy who can take down a tournament, I think he's going to be a guy people do look at. So I think this range is interesting. You and I both in agreement that kind of out of these guys, John Rahm we're not looking to use anymore. We just think, next year we'll be all back on board, but this year he's kind of worn out.
Yeah, I think if you look at Rahm's recent performance in his last few tournaments, I mean, he missed the cut the US Open. That was pretty much a given because we kind of figured that his mental game wasn't there just yet to play well at the US Open. And then after that, he has played okay, just nothing too exciting. He basically finished in the middle of the field in his last three tournaments. And in the last five, he actually's been losing strokes on the greens. So I think with that in mind, at 8,900, yeah, he's just a fadeaway in my books for this week. And for possibly the next three events, I think he's just mentally exhausted at this point.
Yeah, and there's just too many other guys right in that range that I'd rather take. I mean, Paul Casey being just $100 more, obviously he's been playing really well. Strokes gained total over his last 12 rounds, he's fourth. Putting's been a little bit average at best, below par, you could say, but he's just one of those guys. I mean, consistently at 9K. I mean, you know what you're going to get out of him, tournament in and tournament out, it seems. And once again, it just Paul Casey at 9K, it's just I plug and play.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at his tournament history at this event, he has made his last three cuts here, so he does play pretty well at the first playoff event. I mean, if you look at his stats, I mean, he's third in tee to green in the field, and he's fourth in the field for strokes gained and par 4 scoring. So with that in mind, I think pairing him up with, say, like Koepka, who likes to score, who I've been saying is basically like a mini McIlroy at this point. I think pairing those two guys as a secondary core in a way, and a tournament lineup, is a really nice way to go this week.
Let's go this 8K range, and we can start things out here. Matt Kuchar, 8,700. He's always been kind of a popular play. I mean, what else do we really have left to say about him at this point? I feel like we've talked about him kind of every week because he's the same guy that we just kind of look at, and he's a model of consistency.
Yeah, and I mean, you nailed it with being consistent. He's second in the field for strokes gained around the green. He's 20th in the field for strokes gained par 4 scoring. And then if you look at his history, he's made every cut in this event. His best finish was a tie for 5th, going back in 2014. So, like you said, you know what you're going to get out of him. There's a few guys in here where it's a question mark. But I think Kuchar is just, don't overthink it, just play him. And he's been consistently backdooring top 10 every now and then, especially throughout the summer. So at 8,700, that's what you hope for him to finish inside that top 10 and perhaps a win. But for Kuchar, just top 10, and yeah, that'll be all for him.
And this is a range where, I mean, if you're looking to go balanced, there is balanced names in this 8K range. I mean, Patrick Reed, 8,600, Daniel Berger, Zach Johnson. I know a couple of these names you like as well.
Yeah, I definitely like Zach Johnson for this week. He's 15th in the field for making birdies in the last 12 rounds, and he's 17th in the field for strokes gained and par 4 scoring. So at 8,200, I think he's he's priced right. I think maybe a little cheaper than what I would have expected. But I think out of him, kind of like Kuchar, if he just get him inside that top 10, that's good enough. And then for Patrick Reed, he actually did show signs at the PGA Championship. He almost had a shot of actually winning the whole thing. But if you look at his stats, I mean, his best one is strokes gained and par 4 scoring. So that's something to consider. And for Berger, he's 9th in the field for making birdies. So he's another one of those players where for DraftKings scoring, it's a nice player to have, and if he makes the cut for a tournament lineup.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I think guys in that range. I mean, Justin Rose, he's a kind of a notable name, but he's been in awful form of late. I probably won't be diving down. I feel like that's kind of a trap price.
Yeah, it seems to me ever since really that Masters when he had that weird swing on the back 9 and he just sort of lingered off the tee and something was wrong with his back. And after that, it's been on and off with him throughout the year. If you look at his stats, I mean, he's actually 102nd in strokes gained and par 4 scoring. So something's definitely off. I think he's just a fade for me for this week.
Creeping down lower, I really like Charlie Hoffman here, 7,900. Well, he's been playing well. Those last 12 rounds, I mean, strokes gained tee to green, 14th. I mean, basically he's top 20 in everything except strokes gained approach. Putting's been on. I think this is a really nice bargain price for him at 7,900. And I do think he's actually a sneaky guy who can, come inside the top 10 this week.
Yeah, and I mean, it would have surprised me if he does. He's been just on form all season, all summer, basically. He's fifth in the field for making birdies, and he's also fifth in the field for strokes gained and par 4 scoring. And if you look at his tournament history here, he has made his last 4 cuts here, and last year he actually finished T13. So with that in mind, I'm just going to have to go back to the train and just plug him in. And like I said, with Kuchar, just don't overthink it. You know what you're going to get out of him. He has won before, so he knows how to actually win. So he does have that upside. And yeah, at 7,900, I think that's a nice little price for him this week.
Yeah, and this is kind of a sweet spot for you because, I mean, 3 of your guys in your articles are right in this range. Kevin Chappell, Francisco Molinari, and Jamie Lovemark. I mean, all 7,400 to 7,700. So, the 7K range, it features, a lot of names. Like I said, there's the balanced approach, that you can go with these guys.
Yeah, and I'm basically out of the 4 stats, all 3 of these guys that you mentioned, they're basically in the top 10 in 2 of those 4 stats in the field. For Chappell, he's in the top 10 for around the green and also tee to green. Molinari, who, like Stenson, I cannot seem to get it right with him, but I do like him this week. He's in the top 10 in the field for tee to green and also for strokes gained and par 4 scoring. And then for Lovemark, I mean, he's good for making birdies. He's 7th in the field for that, and he's 8th in the field for around the green. So I think all 3 are in play for both either in cash or in GPP. They're just the guys that I trust the most in this range, and I think I'm going to probably expose them. I'm going to say pretty close to 60%, if not a little bit higher, just to be a little bit more aggressive. And if they happen to play well and get inside that top 10, then that'll be really, really good for my lineups.
Yeah. And, there's another name here, Tony Finau, 7,300. It's just, this range is really nice. I think there's a lot of options. And, Finau, obviously, his ownership was through the roof two tournaments ago. And, you could kind of see that possibly happening again just because he is a notable name that kind of shines through in this 74 to 6,800 range. And you look at Finau, I mean, second DK points over his last 3, third in strokes gains off the tee. He's just a solid all-around golfer. And once again, I just think he's underpriced.
Yeah, and just like the PGA, I think the PGA, he was like 2nd overall next to Kuchar, I want to say, for ownership. And Finau, again, I mean, at 7,300, people are going to look at his stats. They're going to look at his recent results. And if you scroll down for his tournament history, I mean, he played here twice so far last 2 years, and he's finished inside the top 20 in both attempts. He's hitting it all cylinders, and yeah, he's probably going to be the highest zone, I think. I'm not going to say 40% because that's rare. He'll probably crack that 35%, I think, this week. He's just going to be very popular.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. If you kind of want to go stars and scrubs, which we were talking about an approach, like that before, there's a couple names that we do like in this, 7K to 6,600 range. We'll start with Ian Poulter here first at 7K. He's been pretty consistent of late. Obviously, his best finish, was at the Canadian Open. 22nd at the PGA Championship. He's going to be a guy I think you can look for value if you are going with, a couple of those 9K plus guys. I think he'll be the first one that I look to plug in.
Yeah, I think I wrote him up back at the PGA as well, and I basically said that he's been on a heater pretty much ever since he found out that he actually made enough points to be eligible for the full season. And with that, yeah, he's still making cuts. He's second in the field for strokes gained, par 4 scoring. And then if you do look at his tournament history, where this is where I think his ownership will go down a little bit, is that people will see all the missed cuts that he's had at the first playoff event. So people will see that. They'll see Gary Willen just above him. And
Who's been the opposite.
Yeah. So
yeah.
With Gary Willen's history, you have a look here. T2 back in 2013, and he a T4 last year. They're going to compare the two. They're just going to go to him right away. So I think Poulter's going to be overlooked, and I think Poulter will make the cut again. And he does have that upside. If his putter does get hot, then he will have a good chance of actually pulling it off and actually winning the tournament.
I know a guy that you wrote up in your article as well, Charles Schwartzel in 6,900. This is a guy who, decent history here as well.
Yeah, he only missed one cut in his last five attempts at the first playoff event. Outside of that, he's basically finished in the middle of the pack. So at 6,900, that's really all you want. You just want him to make that cut and finish inside the top 40. And yeah, he's meeting value right there. With his stats, I mean, he's 17th in the field for strokes gained around the green, and he's also 23rd in the field for tee to green. So all he needs to do is just start rolling some putts in, and he might actually, just like Poulter, have that upside of actually pulling it off and potentially have a chance of winning this week.
Yeah, definitely. Next guy kind of popped up on my radar before we were on, and Ches Reavie, 6,700. I feel like a lot of his troubles were early on in the year, and he's kind of pulled through. He's not finishing high in these tournaments, but he's actually been a pretty decent scorer, in this span here. And I just think 6,700 for a guy who, the stats don't pop out at you, and I don't think anything's really popping out with him for anyone else. But he's an interesting name, I think, that can actually score pretty well and kind of be a sneaky GPP option.
Yeah, the fact that he's been gaining strokes on the greens in his last 10 tournaments, he's been gaining a stroke on the field in putting. With that being said, I mean, he has made a cut here last year. That was his first time making it to the playoffs in a while, and he finished T31st last year. So again, just like Schwartzel, if he can keep his putter going like he has, he hasn't missed a cut in a while, not since the Byron Nelson. So with that in mind, I think he's just a pure value at this point. Just knowing what you're going to get out of him, just making a cut and maybe a top 30, a top 35 finish, and go on from there.
Yeah, and that's really, all that I would be looking for out of him. I know you do have a couple of fades that, you're kind of looking in this range. Bubba Watson, 7,300. You just feel like you have to say it.
Yeah, I kind of do a little bit. I mean, he's been just off all season long. I don't know what's up with him. Basically, if you look at his stats, it's okay to not so great. He's 104th in the field for strokes gained and par 4 scoring. So that's basically near dead last of the field. There's 120 players play this week. So with that being said, and yeah, if you look at his recent performance, I mean, it's just been not that great. I mean, he did okay at the WGC, but outside of that, it's either a miscut or he might get a top 10 or he'll just finish near dead last of the field. Yeah, I just don't know what to make of him for this year. Maybe he doesn't care anymore. I don't know. I'm just gonna fade him. And I just don't know what to do.
And it's funny because, talking history, he's obviously one of the better guys in this tournament, just with his recent years at the playoffs. But yeah, like you said, it's just there's too many guys that we talked about in that range that have just been far more consistent and have been scoring better. And as we looked, I mean, Lovemark and Finau are just two better that I can name off the top of my head that I'd rather just go 100% over Bubba Watson. Ownership aside, I don't care.
Yeah, I think this is a case of if you look at tournament history, then sure, play him. He seems to play very well at the first playoff event. He finished third in 2015, but this year is a completely different year. All those years before this year, he was just red hot. He was actually winning, and this year, I guess he was like some sort of food diet that he started and lost some weight, and the swing just didn't go well with the loss of the weight that he had.
I've been telling myself that for years.
Yeah, I mean, it works in some players, and it doesn't work in others. With that in mind, like I said earlier, I just don't know what to do with him. I think overall, just going to be a fade for the rest of the season and see how he looks for next year. But yeah, I just have to fade.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with you. In terms of a dark horse, who you got going this week? Who do you like to win?
Oh, I think for a dark horse player, you know what? It's been a while. I think Lovemark has a chance of actually winning. He has been playing well this season, and like I say, if you look at his game log, he hasn't missed a cut all the way back to the Honda, and there's been a few top 10s in there as well. So with that in mind, yeah, I think Lovemark is due for a win. I'll go for him.
I'll go a little bit higher up in terms of price, just a couple hundred more than you. But Charlie Hoffman, he's kind of similar. I mean, a couple of top 10s, a couple of top 5s, even over his last few tournaments, he's kind of been really close this year and scoring well. So, those guys are two that they need to break over that hump and kind of get past, and, they certainly could do it here.
Yeah, Hoffman, yeah, he's been very consistent. Just like Lovemark, I mean, it's just, yeah, I think I'll go with both of those picks as a dark horse. Even with Chappell, I think is another decent option as a guy who's been on form lately and maybe has a chance on winning it this weekend.
Yeah, definitely could. So that's going to wrap it up for us. If you want to check out Chris's article, you can head over to fantasycafe.com. It is up on the site now. And good luck this week.